54 years ago, Colorado voters were handed a choice that Queenslanders have never received. Denver had already won the 1976 Winter Olympics. Then the public was asked to fund them. Voters rejected $5 million in state support after concerns about cost, growth, and environmental damage. Denver did something no Olympic host had done before. They handed the Olympics back. The Olympic flame moved to Innsbruck instead. Denver survived. The Games survived. But that decision left behind a question that now belongs to Brisbane. If the public could see the real cost of staying and the real cost of leaving, what would Queensland choose? Now bring that choice home. Brisbane is 6 years from the 2032 Games, and households are not entering those years from a position of comfort. As this video is being made, Australia's cash rate is 4.35%. Inflation is still elevated. National rents rose 3.6% over the year to June. The Reserve Bank says scheduled mortgage and consumer credit payments are consuming nearly 12% of household disposable income, close to their 2024 peak. That does not mean the Olympics caused your rent or your mortgage. It did not. But it changes the question people are entitled to ask. When families are already surrendering more of every pay packet to housing, how much public risk should governments accept for a 2-week event? Start with what we know. There are 3 different buckets of money, and mixing them together creates more heat than truth. The first is the $7.1 billion venue program, jointly funded by the Queensland and Australian governments. The second is the cost of operating the Games: security, staff, transport during the event, technology, ceremonies, and temporary infrastructure. The original organising budget was $4.9 billion in 2021 money, intended to be covered largely through broadcast contributions, sponsorship, ticketing, and other Games revenue. But Queensland underwrites the organising committee if that plan falls short. The third bucket is transport and wider infrastructure. Governments identified billions in rail, road, and legacy projects connected with delivering the Games. Much of it is needed for a growing southeast Queensland, with or without the Olympics. Calling every kilometre an Olympic cost would be misleading. Pretending the fixed 2032 deadline creates no extra risk would be misleading too. That is why one finding matters more than any dramatic total. Queensland's Audit Office says there is no consolidated whole-of-Games budget. In plain English, the public can see individual promises, but not one authoritative number showing the complete exposure across venues, operations, transport, security, and government commitments. Here is the economic pressure point. The Olympics do not set the Reserve Bank's interest rate. A stadium does not automatically increase your rent. The risk is more practical. Games projects and housing projects can require the same workers, the same concrete, the same steel, and sometimes the same land. When the construction market is already stretched, billions of deadline-driven work can increase competition for those inputs, lift project prices, and push less urgent work further back. That is a risk, not a guaranteed outcome. Infrastructure can also make a city more productive. New transport can unlock housing, reduce travel times, and support jobs long after the closing ceremony. The honest question is whether the useful legacy is worth the cost of forcing so much delivery toward one immovable date. Then there is property. Real estate advertisements are already using Brisbane 2032 as part of the growth story. Buyers are being invited to imagine new transport, international attention, and rising demand. Some owners and developers may already be benefiting from that expectation, but nobody can honestly promise what Brisbane homes will be worth after the Games. Population, housing supply, employment, and interest rates matter far more than a logo. So the defensible question is not, will Brisbane property crash? It is this. If an Olympic premium is already priced into some properties, what happens to that premium if the Games disappear? Owners near planned venues or transport may lose an expected windfall. Buyers who paid extra for the 2032 story may feel misled. Developers could reconsider projects. Or prices might barely react because the infrastructure, population, and housing shortage remain. Cancellation creates property risk, but its size is unknown. Now we reach the question at the centre of this story. If Queensland is carrying all this risk, why not do what Denver did and hand the Games back? This is where the contract changes everything. Brisbane City Council, the State of Queensland, and the Australian Olympic Committee signed the Olympic host contract. Under that agreement, only the International Olympic Committee has an express right to terminate and withdraw the Games in specified circumstances. The Australian host parties have no matching, clean, unilateral exit clause. The contract allows the organising committee to request changes in unforeseen hardship and says the parties should seek a mutually agreeable solution. That creates room to negotiate. It does not create a guaranteed right to cancel without consequence. And here is the answer nobody can presently put on a thumbnail. There is no published fixed cancellation fee. Leaving could involve money already spent, cancelled construction and supplier contracts, workforce claims, organising costs, possible claims or damages under the host contract, and the price of negotiating an orderly transfer to another host. Until governments and the Olympic Committee negotiate, anybody claiming to know the exact cancellation bill is guessing. Cancelling would create another bill that cannot be measured only in dollars. Brisbane invited athletes, broadcasters, sponsors and businesses to plan around 2032. Walking away could make the city and Australia appear unreliable, damage relationships and embarrass governments on a global stage. Yet continuing, regardless of the final price, could send a different message, that once an international commitment is signed, taxpayers lose the ability to say enough. Denver shows that surrendering the Games does not permanently destroy a city. But Brisbane in 2032 is not Denver in 1972. The contracts, commercial commitments, and global media system are different. Denver is proof that withdrawal is possible, not proof that withdrawal would be cheap. So follow the upside as carefully as the bill. Construction and engineering firms gain work. Employees receive wages. Sporting bodies receive upgraded facilities. Tourism and hospitality businesses may gain visitors. Sponsors and broadcasters gain a global event. Developers and existing landowners may gain from infrastructure and publicity. And ordinary residents may receive better transport, public spaces and housing if the promised legacy is actually delivered. Now follow the downside. Taxpayers carry public spending and overruns. Renters and home buyers could face more competition if construction capacity is pulled away from housing. Communities can lose parkland or live through years of disruption. Other regions and services face the opportunity cost of money and skilled workers committed to an Olympic deadline. Risk and reward do not land on exactly the same people. Queensland's Audit Office says Queensland holds the greatest contractual and financial risk. That is the real who really benefits question. Not whether nobody benefits, but whether the people receiving the largest gains are carrying the same share of the downside. That leaves Queensland with a decision it cannot responsibly make from slogans. Put 4 costs on one page: the consolidated costs of continuing, the verified cost of cancelling, the economic and reputational cost of leaving, and the opportunity cost of what Queensland gives up by staying. Then let the public see the same evidence. We are not telling Queensland to cancel the Olympics. We are asking why the public cannot know both prices before more decisions become irreversible. Put a verified exit price in front of Queenslanders. If cancelling cost $1 billion, would you still cancel? What if it were $3 billion or $5 billion? Would you continue, downsize the Games, negotiate a different deal, or walk away? Denver's voters were trusted with their choice. Once Queensland knows the price of staying and the price of leaving, should Queenslanders be trusted with theirs?